everyone, welcome back to my channel, Manal Talks Books. I'm Manal and let's talk books. It has been a while. I have not filmed in a couple of weeks, more than a couple of weeks. I have been in a reading slump. Because of BookTube, you feel like you need to read a lot all the time. They put pressure on you to read more and to read often, and which can be good. Like, it's good to read, but sometimes it's just too much, because it's okay if you're not reading a book a day. And sometimes I forget that, and I just felt really bad that I wasn't reading. I'm in a reading slump, therefore I don't read, but the fact that I don't read intensifies my anxiety and then makes me read less. So it's a vicious cycle. I think that I am almost out of it. I just wanted to let you know why I haven't been filming, because I've just been feeling really bad about the fact that I haven't been reading, and it didn't make me want to come on here and talk about books when I wasn't reading books. This video is a book review, and I'm gonna talk about a book that I started in July and that I actually finished. And the book is The Weight of Our Sky. So this is the book. So this is gonna be a spoiler-free review. I just wanted to let everyone know why you should read this book. I haven't seen any of the big booktubers talk about this book, but it is very important in my opinion. So this is a historical fiction. It takes place in the 60s in Malaysia. Now, this book is important for a lot of reasons. First of all, it teaches us about a part of history that us in the West don't know anything about. Like, I was not aware of the conflict happening in this book. So it's inspired by true events, by racial riots that took place in Malaysia in the 60s. And again, I did not know anything about it. I didn't even know that much about Malaysia, and I'm just really happy that I got to read this and discover another part of the world. The author, Hannah Alkaf, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm sorry, but the author is Malaysian and she's Muslim, and the main character is Muslim. So it's got Muslim rep. It's an own voices novel. It's a historical fiction that teaches us about an event that took place in another part of the world that we weren't aware of, and it deals with anxiety and OCD. If you're not in a good mental place to read this book, please don't. But if you can read this book, do it. Let me first tell you what it's about. So the synopsis. It's about this girl. Her name is Melati, and well, I think I should first tell you about Malaysia. On this island, there are Chinese people, Malaysians, and Indians. So it's a very multicultural place. But in any multicultural place, there are tensions, racial tensions specifically. So the Malaysians and the Chinese have been fighting because obviously whenever different groups of people fight, it's over whose land it is. These tensions have been brewing for decades, and in 1969, after an election where I think the Chinese party won, there have been riots. The Malaysians and the Chinese started a war basically. And for, I think, a week, they started killing each other and just destroying the city. So we follow Melati during that week, from the start of the riots to the end. And Melati lives with her mom. Her dad is dead, so she only has her mom. And Melati has severe anxiety and OCD. But however, since this takes place in the 60s, the late 60s, mental health was not a thing that people really knew about or talked about. And especially in religious cultures, usually when someone had a mental illness, it was attributed to a spirit, or in this case, a jinn, which is a demon, or it's attributed to some spiritual thing. And often people will say, oh, you have this mental illness because you're a bad person, or because you did something wrong, or you angered the god, or you are possessed. You know, people back then were not aware. They weren't educated on mental health issues. So Melody thinks she's possessed by a jinn. She's been going through this for, I think, a year at the start of the book. And one day, her and her best friend go to the movie theaters to watch a movie. And when she comes out, she realizes that no one is out on the streets. She doesn't understand what's happening. And then she hears from a man on the street that the Chinese and the Malays have been killing each other. That is how the book starts. Melody, throughout her journey in this book, is separated from her mother, who is a nurse. A group of Chinese men come into the movie theater, and they start killing the Malays, and they tell the Chinese people in the theater to leave. And there's this one Chinese woman who took Melody out of there. She saved her life, and she brought her home. But they had to basically stay inside and lock themselves inside. And she couldn't leave for a week. So Melody doesn't see her mother for a week. And because she has anxiety and OCD, she can't help but imagine her mom dying over and over and over again. And that just eats her up inside. And in her mind, there's this demon taking control of her mind, showing her all these scenarios where her mom is dead over and over and over again. But she can't go out because there are people killing each other on the streets. However, she needs to find her mother. And so her and this boy, they go out. They try to find her mom. I have to say that I love this book. And it's obviously a tragic story. But to those of you who are like me and don't like reading sad stories because we don't want to cry, I am going to say this. It is sad and you are going to cry, but it has a happy ending. And it is not, it's a book that I can handle, and I don't handle a lot of tragic stories. It's very sad because it's obviously about racism, and I think that it's very relevant, especially this year. It's very important, especially today, to read these kinds of books, especially with the whole, anti-immigration sentiments, the whole racism, the whole discrimination against Muslims and everything. This book is just important because it gives you a point of view of people from a different country dealing with racism, and it gives you a point of view of a Muslim girl, and it gives you a point of view of someone dealing with mental health problems. It's important to get these points of view so that you can understand people with different experiences than yourself. The world can never truly be a better place if people don't start putting themselves in other people's shoes. Also, the cover is absolutely gorgeous, and purple is my favorite color, so this cover is just giving me life. And another thing I will say, if you read this book, listen to the Beatles. Melody really loves music, and it calms her down, especially when she's feeling very anxious. So she loves the Beatles a lot, and there are a lot of Beatles songs referenced through this book. The characters. I just want to talk about the characters a little. So we have Melody, who is a 16-year-old girl, and it was just nice to see that no matter the time period and no matter the country, a 16-year-old girl is a 16-year-old girl. She loves music. She loves going to the movies with her best friend. She goes to school. She thinks about boys. She's a 16-year-old girl, and it's just nice to find ways to relate to people who are different than you. And then other characters. So we have Frankie, which is Vincent's little brother. Frankie is a little a-hole, and I loved seeing how Frankie and Vincent are brothers, but they're so different. Vincent is very compassionate and caring, whereas Frankie is filled with anger. And it shows you how growing up in a world where there are a lot of tensions, where you could either grow up to be a very compassionate person or a hatred-filled and anger-filled person. And another thing I loved about this book is that Melody has been saved by a Chinese woman, and she's been taken into this Chinese woman's home. And it wasn't a book where one side was blamed over the other. It was just idiots killing each other, and both sides are being hurt by it. And so the fact that Melody spent time with his Chinese family throughout this, and they didn't care that she was Malaysian, she didn't care that they were Chinese, and they were just people suffering. Melody goes on to say, "We live and die by the rules of the land we live in, but this country belongs to all of us. We make our own sky, and we can hold it up together." Well, that was it, guys. Thank you for watching, and I should be back to posting every week. We'll see how things go. Please don't forget to like and subscribe,